Can the Atlanta Braves win the NL East for a fifth straight year? And can they get back to the World Series? This is our 2022 season predictions episode. So I'll be telling you what I think will go on with the Braves this year, giving you my predictions for the Braves, for certain players, taking your prediction ideas, doing all of that on today's episode of Lockedon Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, brought to you as part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams every day. Going to take me a while to get used to saying that, but in case you missed the podcast on Friday, we have launched Locked On Sports Atlanta, and Locked On Braves will be part of that. And I had Grant McCauley on last Friday as well to kind of go over that. Me and him are going to be doing Braves postcast together throughout the season after every Atlanta Braves game. So really excited about that. If you want to go back and listen to Friday's podcast, you can get more information on that. But make sure that you go out there, subscribe to Locked On Sports Atlanta, wherever you listen to your podcast. I am your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. Check out my bio there to see where I am covering the game of baseball, including the Atlanta Braves in written form over at tomahawktake.com. Also, make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Don't forget that underscore. Still, really would like to get to 1,000 followers by opening day. We're approaching about 700 right now. So if we can make a really strong push this week, would really appreciate that. We're already over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so keep subscribing there. Appreciate all of the support. Again, as always, I can't thank you enough for making Locked On Braves your first listen each and every day. We continue to post episodes daily, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and the podcast is free and available on all platforms. Before we get into this Monday episode, I want to remind you that it is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, this is our season predictions episode. I already have content planned out for the rest of the week. We're going to have an NL East roundtable, part 1 coming out on Tuesday, I believe, and then part 2 coming out on Wednesday. So got a lot coming out this week, and then we'll have a crossover episode with the guys over at Locked On Reds to prepare for opening day in the opening series with the Cincinnati Reds. It is this week, so get ready, and we'll help you do that with our crossover episode with the Reds. And then I will be at the game on Thursday. I'm pumped. I'm so excited. Can't wait to be there. If you're going to be at the game on Thursday, my DMs are open. Hit me up. Would love to meet some of our listeners. So I'm super excited to be there on Thursday. But like I said, this is our predictions episode. We're going to go over roster predictions. We're going to go over season predictions, player predictions, and then I'll give you my division winners and World Series winners at the end. But let's start with a roster predictions for opening day. And it's really not even a prediction at this point. I mean, things are pretty much finalized unless some last-minute deals come through, and would not be surprised if AA perhaps makes a last-minute move for a starter or a bench guy at this point. But I think we're pretty much locked in. It looks like the Braves will go with a 6-man rotation, which would include Fried, Morton, Anderson, Wright, Inoa, and Davidson as those 6 starters. And in the bullpen, Jansen, Smith, Minter, McHugh, Matzik, Thornburg, O'Day, Strider, and Newcomb. I'm really surprised by the Strider one. I honestly don't know that I love it. I've said my thoughts on here about that several times now. It's not that I don't like Spencer Strider. I love him. I think he has one of the biggest upsides of Braves prospects. I guess it just depends on how they're going to use him. Do they use him as an opener and try to let him pitch 2 or 3 innings? Does he come in for an inning here or there? I really don't want that to happen. that were the case, I kind of would just rather him go to AAA, continue to get stretched out as a starter and work on the things he needs to there. But again, I'd be excited. I mean, I can't wait to see him pitch. But again, I just think there's so much potential and upside there. I don't want to see him getting wasted just sitting in a big league bullpen, but maybe they have a bigger role for him planned out. Newcomb, only reason he's on this roster is because he's out of options, and the Braves just refuse to get rid of him. I tweeted the other day, I think he could get DFA'd, but with the expanded roster, maybe they hold on to him for a little bit. Hope somebody becomes desperate enough that they would make some sort of trade for him. I just don't really see where he fits on this roster and in this bullpen. But for now, with the expanded rosters, I think he's there. I think if Alex can't find a trade destination for him by the end of the month, I think he's likely to get axed at that point. On the lineup side of things, you got TDA, Manny Pena, and William Contreras making the opening day roster. It looks like at this point. Had somebody ask me that last week, and my comments then were, I don't think so, just because I believe they'd rather him continue to get regular reps at AAA and continue to move him around the field and let him continue to work in the outfield. But again, I think he's probably getting one of those extra roster spots for now. He could be a good right-handed DH on days they face a lefty or use him off the bench against a lefty late in the games. So, I mean, I understand that. And I talked about that too when the question was asked. I believe it was on Friday's podcast. I mean, I think he has some value in that bat. And I think that's reason enough to warrant keeping him on the roster. I just thought they wouldn't because they want him to continue to get regular reps, regular at bats, and continue to work him into the outfield. But certainly not mad at having that bat on the bench where they honestly could use another bat or two. Around the infield, you have Olson, Albies, Riley, Swanson, and Orlando Arcia is the only really backup infielder right now. You got guys that could play first base, but it's really Arcia right now if something happens across the infield. And then the outfield, you got Rosario, Duvall, Ozuna, Alex Dickerson, and Guillermo Heredia. Again, this outfield defense is going to be a problem. I'll talk a little bit about that more later. We're obviously still hopeful Ronald Acuna will be able to join the roster sooner rather than later. Luke Jackson goes to the 60-day IL as he has some UCL damage. We'll do some more evaluating there, but obviously never good when we're talking about the UCL. He was, again, put on the 60-day IL. That cleared up a roster spot for Darren O'Day, who, again, pretty much seems like a lock for the opening day roster. Ozzy Albies was scratched from Sunday's game with general soreness, but said he will be back in there for the final two spring training games. And then Ryan Goins, Phil Gosselin, and Pat Valleca were all assigned to minor league camp. Again, infield depth is very thin on the major league roster right now, so very important to keep those guys there at the minor league level in case they are needed. All right, who wins the NL East? How many games do the Braves win? Who breaks out in 2022? I'll tell you all of that next. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championships odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's get into some season predictions for the Atlanta Braves in 2022. Always fun to do these predictions and then look back at the end of the year and figure out how off we were. So don't take these to the bank. Don't run to betonline.net with what I'm about to tell you. But again, I want to put my season predictions on the records and try to do them as unbiasedly as possible. As far as a win total, I'm going to go 94 wins for this Atlanta Braves team. I've been kind of going 92, 94 on other podcasts I've done. I think I've said 92, but I'm going to go with 94. I like that number. I think this team is deep. I think it's built to win that many games, to win this division. Obviously, injuries are going to come up. You just hope it's nothing major and hope it's not to any of your major players. But I like this team, and I understand the division is difficult and will be difficult, but you're going to have teams that fall and fade away in the race as well. So, again, I think 94 wins is really good. I mean, I know they won 88 last year. I think this team on paper is better than the team they had going into last year. So, I'm going to say 94 wins is my win prediction for the Atlanta Braves in 2022. In the NL East, I have the Braves winning the division with those 94 games, those 94 wins. I have the Mets coming in second. I really wanted to do this. I don't know that I fully believe it, but I'm going to say the Marlins come in third. Obviously, that pitching is going to be very good. You got to figure some of those bats are going to step up this year a little bit until they trade us Jorge Soler at the deadline. But I'm going to go with the Marlins in third place, and then the Phillies in fourth. I don't love that roster. I get it. They got some guys that are going to mash. I worry about the rest of that roster. I worry about that rotation after Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola. What does he look like? He was heckle and jive last year. So I don't know what that Phillies rotation looks like. They just worry me. I don't think they're going to be that good. They'll probably end up winning the division now that I said that. And then the Nationals coming in last. I think they're the obvious pick to finish last in this division, and I still think they could be a very good team with one of the best hitters in all of baseball on it. As far as the Braves MVP goes, can't go against Ronald Acuna Jr. He's like Mike Trout at this point for me. As long as he's on the team, I'm going to pick him to win the MVP. It may not happen every year, but he's the best player on the team. If he's healthy and plays all year, he's going to be the MVP of the team. Same is starting to come true for Max Fried, who I think will be the Cy Young for the Braves this season. Again, one of my bold predictions I did somewhere was that Max Fried would win the Cy Young. That may be a little homerish right there, but I do love Max Fried. I think he's going to have another big season. The Braves Rookie of the Year, I liked this one because there's really not anybody that kind of sticks out. If Spencer Strider does make the team out of camp and he stays on there for a while, then perhaps he could. But I'm going to go with another rookie that is looking like he's going to make the opening day roster. I'm going to say William Contreras. I think he gets some at bats throughout the year. And, I love Travis d'Arnaud, love him to death, but he has problems staying healthy. And I just see him missing games this year. And I see William Contreras playing a lot of games for the Atlanta Braves this season, filling in at catcher, filling at the DH spot, whatever it may be. I just see William Contreras getting a lot of at bats this year, and I think he could do well in that role. I mean, the bat is good. We know that. It's just finding a place to put him, and now you have a place in the DH, but I think he's going to get to catch a good bit as well. Braves player who could regress this year. I talked about this a lot on the podcast as well. I think it's Austin Riley. Again, it's hard not to regress. He just had an MVP type season, and it's not like it's going to be to the point that I think he's a below average player. I just think 2021 was maybe one of the best seasons we'll see from him, if not the best. I just think he comes down to maybe what more of his baseline will be, which again, I think will still be a really good player. Braves' biggest weakness, I touched on it at the top. I think their outfield defense, especially early on, is going to be rough. And I was watching Alex Dickerson out there this past weekend, just looking awful in the outfield. Rosario has had some bad moments in the outfield this spring, and it's spring training. Take it for what it is, but it's not like either of those guys have been Gold Glove performers in the past. Somebody who has been, Marcelo Ozuna, worries me as well. Doesn't exactly move around great out there. He may be the best defender of those three that I just mentioned, though. So, obviously when Acuna comes back and you have Acuna and Duvall out there, the outfield defense should be solid. But until that happens, this outfield defense is going to be kind of rough. Maybe not Philadelphia Phillies rough, but it's going to be rough. And then I think just the biggest weakness overall is bench depth. I'm actually not as worried about the rotation and the depth of the rotation right now. It's more so just the bench. And I know the bench isn't going to matter as much now with the DH, but just having depth really in case there are injuries, especially on that infield, that worries me a lot right now. And that's probably what I would say is the Braves' biggest overall weakness going into the season. All right, now I got some predictions. I asked you for some predictions on Twitter, and these are some that I got from you. From Clint Manry, he says, how many plate appearances for Adam Duvall this season, and will Mike Soroka return in the second half? Look, I'm gonna say Adam Duvall gets close to 500 plate appearances. He had 555 plate appearances last year, 513 at bats. I think for the sole reason I just talked about, you kind of have to have him out there right now just to hold down the defense in the outfield. Again, especially until Acuna comes back. I still kind of believe that maybe they try to find a center fielder during the season, and maybe that knocks off some of Duvall's time. But as the roster stands right now, and I'm not the biggest Duvall fan in the world, I just don't see how he doesn't play every day, especially if you're worried about Acuna going back to center field. I think Duvall has to be out there. So I think he gets 400 to 500 plate appearances this year. And on Soroka, yes, I'm going to think optimistically here, and I'm going to say Soroka pitches this season, but I'm going to say it's closer to the beginning of August than the beginning of July. I know there's been some talk of maybe him coming back around the All-Star break. I'm going to say it's closer to August than it is July. Next one comes from Andrew R. He says, where will Acuna, Riley, Olsen, and Olsen rank in MVP voting? How many All-Stars do the Braves have this year, starters for the NL? I'm going to say in the MVP voting, I'm going to say Acuna finishes one, assuming he plays in 140 or more games, which might be a stretch. I don't know that he'll quite get in that many games, but I'm going to say if Acuna is healthy all year, he plays in that many games, I think he finishes first in the NL MVP voting. I'm going to say Matt Olson finishes eighth. I've been saying in some places, I think he hits 40 home runs this year. And, if he does that with the guys he has in front of him in this lineup, I think he's going to drive in well over 100, score close to 90 runs, have a slugging, in the 500s and OPS around 900. So I'm going to say that's good enough for a top 10 MVP vote. And then I'm going to say Riley doesn't finish with any MVP votes this year. I mean, he's going to be overshadowed by Acuna if he's healthy. He probably could be overshadowed by Matt Olson in his first year in Atlanta. So I'm going to say that hurts Riley a little bit. And again, I've already predicted that I think he takes a step back this year. So I'm going to say Riley doesn't get any MVP votes this season. As far as All-Stars go, I think Acuna and Albies are pretty much locks. I mean, I think Albies is one of the best, if not the best, second baseman in the game. So I think both of them are locks to make the All-Star team, along with Max Fried. I think those three for sure will get voted to the All-Star team. I'm going to say Olsen and Riley make it as well. And then I'm going to say Kenley Jansen makes the All-Star team too. So that's 6 All-Stars for the Atlanta Braves that I think could be there. Starters, I think Acuna starts. I think he's probably the only starter for the Braves. Last one comes from Daniel Hodges. He says, will the Braves trade anyone away at the deadline? I'm assuming Daniel means prospects. If they're trading away from the major league roster, then things have gone poorly. I mean, perhaps there's a deal out there where they're making an upgrade somewhere and they trade, somebody with an expiring contract from the major league roster. Maybe things aren't going well with Rosario. I'm not predicting that. I'm just trying to answer Daniel's question here. And maybe you trade Rosario for an upgrade somewhere. But I just don't see them trading from the major league roster. I mean, I guess you could say the same for Dansby, who's in a walk year essentially. If he was hurt or struggling and you want to make an upgrade at shortstop, then maybe you trade away Dansby with a prospect to kind of save some money there. I guess you could say that for Duvall as well. If you're going to make an upgrade in center, maybe you package Duvall with a prospect. to save some money in that deal and pick up a center fielder. But again, I don't predict that happening. As far as prospects go, I would say Waters. If it's a big package, I think Waters could be a headliner in that. Maybe not a huge type package because I think Waters has lost some value. But I think if the Braves do make another really big deal this season, I think Waters would be part of that package. Whichever young starter kind of fades out of the rotation, whether it's Kyle Muller, Tucker Davidson, you know, maybe even Bryce Elder too. While I love Bryce Elder, I think his ceiling is a number 3, and I think he probably settles more into a 4th or 5th starter. I think he's destined for that role and could pitch there for a long time. But again, I think it's a guy you could trade as part of a package, and it's not necessary. It wouldn't necessarily come back and bite you. So I think they could trade, one of those young starters. If Newcomb doesn't get DFA'd, I think he'll be traded. Same could possibly be said for Tukey Toussaint, who I think will get another shot in the rotation at some point this year. But he's, obviously somebody that I think could be traded away. The only prospects for me that are off limits are Michael Harris and Spencer Strider. Maybe Vaughn Grissom, depending on what the Braves view as far as shortstop of the future, whether it's going to be Dansby or not. But those are prospects, that I think could be traded and some that I would not trade and I don't predict to be traded. All right, next we will do our postseason and World Series predictions. You already know a Built Bar is one of the best tasting protein bars out there right now. They are great for you and they taste great as well. They have so many different flavors from mint brownie, coconut almond, my favorite, the cookies and cream, and they have new flavors coming out all the time at built.com. And not only are they fantastic, they're great for you too. Most of them only have about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a typical candy bar, which can have anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. And all Built bars are covered in 100% real chocolate. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. Again, use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, getting into our season predictions, going through all the divisions and the postseason. In the NL East, I got the Braves. The NL Central, I think it's the Brewers division all the way right now. In the West, I wanted to be trendy and maybe go with the Padres, but it's got to be the Dodgers. The wild card teams, I'm going to say Mets, Padres, and Cardinals get the wild card spots. In the AL East, I got the Toronto Blue Jays. Going to be a really fun team to watch. In the AL Central, got the White Sox, another team that I love to watch. In the AL West, the Seattle Mariners. I think they take things over there in the West. And then the 3 wild card teams in the AL are the Yankees, Rays, and Astros. You just don't bet against the Rays making the postseason, so I think they do slide in. And the NLCS, I got the Braves and Dodgers. I kind of hope this doesn't happen because I don't want to hear all the Freeman and Olsen storylines, but I do think those are the 2 best teams on paper in the National League right now. So I got them in the NLCS. In the ALCS, I got the Blue Jays and White Sox. That would be a fun series. I love both of those teams. And I just think that would be a very entertaining series there. In the World Series, I'm going to make a homer pick here. I don't know that I necessarily believe it, but it's a Lockedon Braves podcast, so I got to go with it. But I got the Braves over the Blue Jays. Again, I think a lot of people are picking Blue Jays and Braves in the World Series, which is making me quite nervous for that prediction. But I'm going to go Braves over Blue Jays. I think the Braves have a lot of depth, and the Blue Jays have a ton of depth, and I think that gets you through the regular season and the postseason as well. And that would be a very fun World Series to watch. Those are my predictions. Let me know yours down in the comments on YouTube. Hit me up on Twitter as well. Let me know what some of your predictions are for the upcoming season. But that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. You can follow me at ShortstopBall. Also, make sure you subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.